The wedding cake crashed sideways just as Nadia Okoye reached for the top tier. She caught it with both hands before it hit the floor, her heart pounding as white frosting smeared across her apron. "Not today," she whispered, steadying the towering masterpiece. 3 days of work balanced in front of her. This cake wasn't just another order. It belonged to the country's most powerful billionaire. She picked up her piping bag and carefully repaired the damaged icing. The aroma of butter, vanilla, and cinnamon filled the small bakery while the morning sun streamed through the front windows. Her little shop had become one of the most talked about bakeries in Seoul because every cake carried a story, and every customer left smiling. Nadia had built that reputation with sleepless nights, determination, and a promise she had made to herself 5 years earlier. No matter what happened, she would never depend on another person for her happiness again. The bell above the entrance suddenly rang. Without looking up, she smiled politely. "Good morning. I'll be with you in just a second." No answer came. Only silence. Not the silence of someone browsing. The silence of someone frozen in place. Something inside Nadia tightened. She slowly lifted her eyes. The piping bag slipped from her fingers. Standing near the entrance was Ethan Kwon, the man she had loved with every piece of her heart. The man she had disappeared from 5 years earlier. The billionaire looked older, more mature. His tailored charcoal suit fit him perfectly. A luxury watch rested on his wrist. His sharp jaw looked even more defined than she remembered. Behind the glass doors, 2 security officers stood quietly beside a black luxury vehicle. Everything about him spoke of power. Everything except his eyes. Those eyes still searched for her exactly the way they had years ago. Neither of them spoke. Neither seemed capable of breathing. Then a cheerful little voice shattered the silence. "Mama!" Tiny footsteps echoed across the bakery. A 5-year-old boy ran from the kitchen carrying a coloring book. "Mama, can I have another cupcake? I finished drawing the dragon." The child stopped. His curious eyes landed on the stranger. Ethan's world stopped spinning. The little boy looked astonishingly familiar. Warm brown skin like his mother. Bright, intelligent eyes. But the shape of the face, the jawline, the confident posture, most of all, the streak of golden hair running naturally through his dark curls. The exact streak every firstborn son in Ethan's family had carried for generations. His father had it. His grandfather had it. Ethan had it. Now, so did this little boy. The billionaire couldn't blink. He silently counted backward. 5 years. 5 years. His chest tightened. The dates aligned perfectly. "Mama," the little boy whispered. "Who is he?" Nadia somehow found her voice. "A customer, sweetheart." The boy looked at Ethan again. For a moment neither of them looked away. Then he smiled politely. "Hello, mister." Ethan opened his mouth but no words came out. Nadia gently touched her son's shoulder. "Leo, sweetheart, could you finish your drawing in the back room? I'll bring your cupcake in a minute." Leo nodded obediently before disappearing behind the kitchen door. Silence returned. Ethan finally spoke. "How old is he?" Nadia calmly wiped frosting from the counter. "The cake samples are ready." His voice became firmer. "How old is he?" She looked directly into his eyes. 5. The single word struck harder than any punch. Ethan stared at her, as though the world beneath his feet had disappeared. "You were pregnant." "Yes." "You knew." "Yes." "And you never told me." Her expression remained calm. "I didn't." His breathing became heavier. "Why?" Instead of answering immediately, Nadia reached beneath the counter. She removed an old cream-colored envelope. Its edges were worn from years of being opened and closed. She placed it gently between them. "Read it." Ethan slowly unfolded the letter. His expression changed with every line. We know exactly who you are to Ethan Kwon. If you remain in his life, your family will suffer first. Disappear before he returns, or you will regret every choice you've ever made. Ethan's fingers tightened around the paper. He knew that handwriting. He had seen it on countless business documents. He had trusted the man who wrote it. His cousin, Daniel Kwon. Nadia watched the realization spread across Ethan's face. I received that letter the night before I left. You should have called me. You were in Singapore negotiating your company's largest acquisition. I would have come back. I didn't know that then. She took a slow breath. I had just discovered I was carrying your child. My parents lived thousands of miles away. I had no protection. I wasn't afraid for myself. I was afraid for my baby. Ethan lowered his eyes. For 5 years he had believed Nadia had abandoned him without explanation. Daniel had comforted him. Daniel had insisted she had simply changed her mind. Daniel had even organized private investigators to search for her. Now Ethan understood. The investigation had never been meant to find her. It had only been meant to convince him that every possible effort had been made. His entire past collapsed inside a single bakery. If you're already wondering what Ethan will do after discovering the greatest betrayal of his life, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and tell us in the comments, would you forgive someone who hid your child to protect that child from your own family? Ethan carefully folded the letter. I've been living inside a lie. Nadia answered quietly. So have I. Neither of them noticed little Leo peeking from behind the kitchen door. The boy looked from his mother to the stranger whose hair looked just like his. For the first time in his young life, he wondered whether the mysterious man standing in the bakery might somehow belong to him. Ethan returned the following morning before the bakery officially opened. The security officers remained outside, but he walked in alone carrying nothing except a quiet determination. Nadia glanced up from arranging fresh pastries. You came back. I said I would. She nodded toward a small table beside the window. The coffee is fresh. You still remember how I take it. I remember many things. Neither of them smiled. The silence between them no longer felt hostile. It simply carried the weight of 5 lost years. Ethan wrapped both hands around the warm cup. I spent months searching for you. I know. You knew. I saw your people twice. I moved before they could find me. You hid that carefully? I had to. She looked toward the kitchen. I wasn't protecting myself anymore. Before Ethan could answer, little footsteps echoed across the room. Leo climbed onto the chair opposite him. He rested his chin on both hands and studied Ethan with complete seriousness. My teacher says staring isn't polite. Ethan smiled faintly. She's probably right. But Mama also says asking questions is how people become smart. I agree with your mother. Leo leaned closer. Why does your hair look like mine? The bakery became completely quiet. Nadia stopped arranging bread. Every customer browsing near the entrance suddenly seemed miles away. Ethan looked at the little boy. It runs in my family. Leo's eyes widened. So mine comes from a family too? It does. Does that mean we're related? Nadia instinctively looked toward Ethan. This moment belonged to both of them. Ethan answered carefully. I believe we are. Leo tilted his head. Like cousins. Ethan's voice softened. I think I'm your father. The little boy blinked twice. He looked at his mother. She slowly nodded. I wanted to tell you when you were old enough to understand. Leo climbed off the chair. For a second Ethan feared the child would run away. Instead, Leo walked around the table and stopped beside him. So, you really are my daddy? Yes. You didn't know about me? No. You would have come? I would have crossed the world. Leo stared at him for another long moment. Then he quietly reached out his little hand. Ethan took it. Something inside both of them healed without either knowing how. Nadia turned away, pretending to organize display boxes because tears suddenly blurred her vision. For 5 years she had imagined dozens of different reunions. None had looked like this. That afternoon Ethan cancelled every meeting. Instead he remained inside the bakery helping Leo decorate cupcakes. Half the frosting ended up on Leo's nose. Another streak landed across Ethan's expensive suit. Leo burst into uncontrollable laughter. Nadia hadn't heard laughter like that inside her bakery for years. For the first time since disappearing, she allowed herself to believe maybe she hadn't destroyed every possibility of happiness. Days passed. Then weeks. Ethan never pressured Nadia. He never demanded custody. He never asked Leo to call him dad. He simply showed up. Every morning. Every afternoon after work. Sometimes bringing children's books. Sometimes helping wash dishes after closing. Sometimes sitting quietly while Leo completed homework. Trust wasn't rebuilt through speeches. It was rebuilt through consistency. One rainy evening Leo looked up from his drawing. Daddy. Ethan immediately looked toward him. Yes. I called you Daddy. I noticed. Was that okay? Ethan smiled with eyes already shining. It was the best thing that's happened to me. Leo grinned proudly. Nadia quietly walked into the storage room before either of them noticed tears running down her cheeks. She had spent years convincing herself Leo didn't need a father. Now she realized what he had truly needed was the right father. Unfortunately, someone else had also been watching. Victoria Han, the woman Ethan had been expected to marry. She refused to believe the engagement had ended because of another woman. She hired private investigators. Within days they discovered Nadia. Then Leo. Victoria drove herself to Leo's international primary school. She arrived wearing designer clothes and carrying expensive chocolates. When classes ended, she approached Leo with a friendly smile. You must be Leo. My mommy says I shouldn't talk to strangers. I'm not a stranger. She knelt slightly. I know your father. Leo's eyes brightened. You know Daddy, Ethan? We're supposed to get married. Leo's smile disappeared. Victoria continued before he could speak. Your daddy belongs with me. You'll probably only get to visit him once in a while. But I'm sure he'll still love you. She walked away smiling. She never saw Leo quietly wipe away a tear. That evening the usually cheerful boy barely touched his dinner. Nadia immediately sensed something was wrong. What happened today? Leo looked down at his plate. A lady came to school. Nadia froze. What lady? She said Daddy is marrying her. His voice became smaller. She said I'll only get to visit him sometimes. Silence filled the bakery apartment. Then came the question that shattered Nadia's heart. Mama. Is Daddy making another family without us? Nadia immediately crossed the room. She knelt in front of her son and held both his cheeks gently. Listen to me carefully. Leo looked into her eyes. You are not someone people visit. You are family. You belong wherever your father belongs. No one can replace you. No one. Leo nodded slowly. Promise. I promise. The moment Leo went upstairs, Nadia picked up her phone. Her hands were steady. Her voice wasn't. Ethan answered before the second ring. Nadia. Victoria went to Leo's school. Silence. She introduced herself as your future wife. Another silence. She told my son he'd only get to visit you. When Ethan finally spoke, his voice no longer sounded like the gentleman who helped wash baking trays. It sounded like the billionaire who commanded multinational companies. Where is Leo? Home. Lock every door. What are you going to do? The mistake wasn't yours. It was mine. And before this day ends, I'm going to correct it. Don't go anywhere because the final part contains the biggest betrayals yet, a desperate kidnapping, a father's fight against impossible odds, and a decision that will change all three of their lives forever. If you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. What should Ethan do to anyone who threatens his son? Ethan ended the call and immediately instructed his driver to turn the car around. He wasn't going to his office. He wasn't going to a board meeting. He was going to the Han family estate. 25 minutes later, he walked into the grand reception hall where Victoria, her parents, and several executives were discussing the upcoming merger. Every conversation stopped. Victoria smiled confidently. "Ethan, I knew you'd come around." He didn't return the smile. Instead, he placed the engagement ring on the polished table. The diamond spun once before coming to a stop. "The engagement is over." The room fell silent. Victoria stared at the ring. "What? You deliberately approached my son. Ethan. You frightened a 5-year-old child." Her father stood abruptly. "Watch your words." Ethan turned toward him. "No, Mr. Han. You should watch yours. This business alliance ends today. You can't cancel a merger over one woman. I'm canceling it because anyone who threatens my family has no place in my future." Victoria's face turned pale. "She trapped you." "No. I failed to protect her 6 years ago. I won't fail again." Without another word, Ethan walked away. Within an hour, every legal team working for Kwon Holdings received instructions to terminate negotiations with the Han Group. News of the broken engagement spread through Seoul before sunset. But while Ethan was ending one battle, another had already begun. Daniel Kwon watched the news from his office with growing anger. Everything he had worked to preserve was collapsing. The lies, the manipulation, the carefully arranged marriage. All because Nadia had returned. He refused to lose. The following afternoon, Leo finished art class and waited outside the school gate for the family driver Ethan had recently assigned to him. Before the driver arrived, a smiling woman approached. "I work with your father's office." She pointed toward a nearby vehicle. "Your daddy sent me because he's waiting." Leo hesitated. His mother had taught him never to leave with strangers. Then the woman held up a photograph of Ethan. For a brief moment, Leo believed her. By the time the real driver reached the school entrance, the vehicle was already gone. Nadia answered the phone while preparing bread for the next morning. The words nearly made her collapse. "Mrs. Okoye. Leo is missing." The mixing bowl slipped from her hands and shattered across the floor. 5 minutes later, Ethan burst through the bakery doors. He didn't waste time asking questions. He wrapped one arm around Nadia. "I will bring him home." Tears streamed down her face. "You promised. And I keep my promises." He immediately called his head of security. Within minutes, surveillance footage from surrounding streets appeared on multiple screens inside a command vehicle. Every traffic camera, every toll booth, every private security network, everything was being reviewed. One image changed everything. The vehicle entered an abandoned warehouse district owned by a company connected to Daniel through 3 shell corporations. Ethan's expression hardened. "He wants me to come." The security chief nodded. "It's a trap. Then we'll finish it." Ethan refused to bring an army. He selected 4 trusted security officers who had protected him for years. They moved quietly through the dark warehouse. No shouting. No unnecessary violence. Only precise movements. Inside a locked storage room sat Leo. The little boy hugged his knees tightly. His eyes filled with relief the instant the door opened. "Daddy!" Ethan crossed the room in seconds. He knelt before his son. "Are you hurt?" Leo shook his head. "I knew you'd find me." Ethan's eyes became wet. You never stopped believing? No. You always come. Those simple words struck deeper than anything Ethan had ever heard in a boardroom or business negotiation. Leo stretched out both arms. Without hesitation, Ethan lifted his son into his embrace. For the first time, he understood that success wasn't measured by companies or wealth. It was measured by the little heartbeat resting safely against his chest. Suddenly footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Daniel appeared with 2 armed men. So this is the child who ruined everything. Ethan stepped forward, shielding Leo behind him. No. You ruined everything the day you chose power over family. Daniel laughed bitterly. I protected our name. You destroyed it. Security officers moved into position. Seeing he was surrounded, Daniel attempted to flee. He didn't make it 3 steps before officers restrained him. The evidence recovered from the warehouse, along with Nadia's threatening letter and financial records linking Daniel to the kidnapping, was enough to destroy him completely. By the next morning, every major news outlet reported his arrest. The Kwon family publicly removed him from every company position. Months of lies collapsed within a single day. At the hospital, doctors confirmed Leo was healthy. Only minor dehydration. Nothing more. Nadia walked into the examination room. The instant Leo saw her, he jumped from the bed and wrapped both arms around her waist. I'm okay, Mama. She kissed his forehead repeatedly. I know. When she finally looked toward Ethan, she noticed fresh bruises along his shoulder. You were injured. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. For several seconds they simply looked at each other. Then Leo quietly took one of Nadia's hands and one of Ethan's. He placed them together. Neither adult moved. Neither wanted to break the moment. 6 weeks later, Nadia stood inside the grand opening of her second bakery. Everything around her reflected years of sacrifice. The warm lighting, the handcrafted shelves, the beautiful display cases. This wasn't a gift from anyone. She had earned every brick. Customers filled the shop. Reporters gathered outside after hearing the famous billionaire would attend. When Ethan arrived, he wasn't carrying flowers. He wasn't surrounded by cameras. He simply walked in holding Leo's hand. The entire bakery became quiet. Ethan stopped before Nadia. He placed a small velvet box on the counter. Inside rested a simple platinum ring with a delicate band of gold running through its center. I once loved you in silence, he said. I let other people decide where you belonged. I will never make that mistake again. He took a slow breath. I'm not asking you to become part of my world. I'm asking permission to become part of yours. Nadia looked around the bakery she had built with her own hands. She remembered the frightened young woman who had left before sunrise carrying nothing but hope for her unborn child. That woman no longer existed. Now she was strong, independent, respected. She looked at Ethan. If this works, it happens as equals. He nodded immediately. As equals. She smiled. For the first time. I believe you. Before Ethan could say another word, Leo grinned from ear to ear. Mama. I think you should say yes. Laughter filled the bakery. Nadia picked up the ring. With tears shining in her eyes, she slipped it onto her finger. The room erupted into applause. Ethan didn't celebrate with triumph. He simply reached for her hand. Not to lead her. Not to stand in front of her. But to walk beside her. As the 3 of them stood together in the bakery that Nadia had built through courage, sacrifice, and unwavering love, it became clear that the strongest families are not built by wealth or power, but by trust earned one day at a time. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Leave a comment below and tell us, if you were in Nadia's place, would you have forgiven Ethan after everything that happened? Until the next story, thank you for watching, and may courage always lead you to the people who truly deserve your heart.